reporting and analysis lecture, and today we want to do our business communication lecture. So my brother here, Donald, will take you through the module for business communication from today until we are done at the end of the semester. All the sessions will be recorded. We'll send through the links via the groups. Then the cost is the same as last semester, 800 per module for the entire semester. And then we expect the payments starting at the month end. So this week and next week, we'll be doing some free classes just to advertise and show ourselves. But you are free to contact me if you've got any questions that you have for me or for Donald. My brother, you can go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. I trust and I hope that you guys are well. So you are hearing from Donald. So firstly, just to introduce myself, well, my name is Donald. I think I've already said that. You can refer to me as Mr. Donny or Donny if you like, right? My goal is for us to help each other learn, right? I'm not just here to tell you things, but I'm also here to learn more about communication because communication is our daily bread. So I will be taking you guys for business communication. For those who did not know, hopefully there aren't any that are in the wrong lecture, right? So yeah, I will be taking you guys for business communication. And business communication is quite interesting, right? Because I mean, let's just talk about communication. We we encounter, we use communication in our daily lives, right? In our relationship. Somebody will tell you, why did you break up? And somebody will be like, there wasn't communication. Does that mean that you guys were not talking to each other? No. But what happened really? You failed to communicate with one another, right? So that's what we want to break down. Now, however, our prime goal is to accomplish this in a business setting, right? In a business setting. So I certainly hope that you guys are going to enjoy this class and that it's going to live with you guys for life. I want it to be such a class that every time when we're about to come for business communication, we're excited, right? Because we're going to learn how to communicate. And if you're lucky, I could teach you a thing or two about communicating in relationships, right? But that's not the goal. But if you guys are lucky and you are nice to me and you talk to me and you answer my question, we could talk about that, All right. So, you know what would have been funny? What would have been funny is me making such a good introduction and my mic is muted. That would have been hilarious. I would have been like, oh my gosh, I have to repeat that. So I was just checking and my heart almost dropped when I thought my mic was muted. Then I realized, oh, I unmuted. But anyway, awesome, guys. I'm looking forward to this, and I sure hope you are. Right? So we're going to interact with one another. This is not going to be your typical lecture section where I just tell you, okay, so step one of communication, you're going to do this. That's boring, right? We can all admit that's boring. You've had a long day, you're coming from work, and you want an exciting class, right? So that's what we're going to do today. All right. So before we start, right, as an icebreaker, before I even go further, have you ever wondered why people that are next to each other would shout at each other? I just want to leave you guys with a question. Why would I shout at someone who's right next to me? Is it really because they can't hear me or I feel like I'm not heard? That's a good question, right? Just think about it. Think about it. Communication. We're talking about business communication, right? So before we start, anyway, just as an icebreaker, I'm going to ask, what is the worst message you guys have ever received? What is the worst message you guys have ever received? Like it could be informal, it could be at work, anything. Just tell me. Like anybody want to open up? Okay, if you guys are shy, that's fine. Let me start. But I'm gonna want to hear your stories as well, right? So, for me personally, right? Uh, you know, out of the blue, your boss just tells you we need to talk. Just think about it. We need to talk. Well, let's look at it like this. Sir James is my boss, right? And then he just says we need to talk. Like mentally, I've already fired myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm done. What have I done now? Right? That's the effect of communication. Or imagine receiving a breakup message before an exam. You just see there, it's over. And you're like, what is over? Well, you probably failed the exam, right? So that was me, guys. Now, I want to hear from you. Anybody can just unmute their mics and tell me what is the worst message that you have ever received? Okay, I'm starting to think my mic is actually muted. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. I
Okay.
think we're just trying to figure out what's the worst message we've received.
Wow.
You're
So,
putting us in
okay.
the spot, Donald.
Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, I'm sorry for putting you guys on the spot. I thought maybe you guys would have like interesting things to tell me. But nonetheless, if you're still thinking about it, you can bring it up at the end of the lecture, right? You can bring it up. But I was just using an example to show you how communication matters. So, now that we have gone through that and spoken about that, I'm just gonna now explain starting business communication. Now we are going into the essence of what we're talking about. Okay, just to break the ice once again, since you say you guys, I'm putting you on the spotlight. Have you ever sent a message and realized that you have made such a critical spelling error? Like, for example, you want to send a message saying, I hope all is well. And then you say, I hope all is hell because you misspelled well and you put hell. You know, there's a guy that I've heard about. So this guy had traveled, and I just want to show you how small details in communication can wreak havoc. I'm gonna show you. So this guy, okay, let me just undo this. This guy here, he's not a friend of mine, but he's just a guy. Don't worry about who he is. This guy travels abroad, right? Travels abroad, and then he has a wife, right? He leaves his wife and child, and then he goes abroad. So first thing he does, obviously, when he arrives, it was back in the day when they used computers for messages, and then he just types, I am, it's like I arrived safely, right? Safely, and I am enjoying. Finished. Can you tell me what is wrong with this message? Just a simple letter missing can cause someone to divorce, right? That is business communication. So now imagine doing that in business. You're going to be fired, you're going to be sued. A lot of bad things can happen, right? But that is just a minor thing. What we're going to talk about here is the essence of business communication, right? How do we conduct ourselves in a business environment, but not in a boring way, right? So, firstly, let's talk about why business communication matters, right? Why does it matter, right? Why are you here listening to this guy who sounds all goofy and excited? It's like someone is so excited to meet you, but you've never met them, right? That's me right now. I'm so excited to meet you guys. So you probably wondering, where does this guy get so much energy, right? So, why does it matter, right? That's because every email you send, every instruction you're going to give, and every meeting you're going to attend or report which you write, right, is an act of business communication, right? So if you're communicating in a business setting, you can either send an email, you can give an instruction if you're a manager. You want to make sure that whatever you say or instruct is going to be understood and is going to give you the best feedback. So my quote of the day, word of the day. I don't know how much you guys are into social media, but I really love these word of the day quotes, word of the day, and then someone says something random. That's really awesome, right? So my word of the day for you guys is today, if you can communicate it clearly, you can lead it effectively, right? If you can communicate it clearly, you can lead it effectively. That is my word of the day. Okay, so another thing I want us to understand is that good ideas fail when they are poorly communicated, right? So somebody can genuinely have a good idea, but if they cannot communicate it properly, boom, then that is bad news, right? It will amount to nothing. And on the other side, an average idea can actually succeed if it is communicated clearly, right? So in business, it's not just about having a good idea, right? But it's about communicating it clearly. Take this, for example, an advert, right? An advert. Maybe the person that you give to create a social media advert for you does not understand what service you are rendering, right? You probably get the wrong customers, right? So, for example, let me make a very radical idea. Like you fix cars, right? And then they advertise using helicopters and stuff. I mean, you're gonna get people, oh, can you service my helicopter? And you're like, what? I mean, no. I fix cars, right? So you want things to be communicated properly, right? And clearly. And that is what we are going to achieve. And hopefully by the end of this series of business communication, all of us are going to be able to understand and also to communicate whatever we want to say, be it to our superiors, to our to our colleagues, maybe even to our friends, because I'm that person that likes to take, side quests, I can call them. Like I remember in school, I used to really enjoy the part where the teacher stopped teaching the actual work and they start telling us stories. I don't know if you guys enjoyed that as well, because I have a lot of stories. But for our time, I'm also going to try to limit on that. Right. So business communication is not just talking. It is purposeful, ethical, and audience-based communication, which is aimed at achieving results. So we are going to break this down, right? We are going to talk about the purposeful aspect, the ethical aspect, sorry, not expert, aspect. English. English is not my mother tongue, sadly, but I do try. I do try because it is our medium, and you're going to understand what is a medium as we are going on, right? So you're probably wondering, this lecturer cannot communicate, but well, they want us to learn how to communicate. You don't need to speak English to know how to communicate, by the way. That is one of the things which we are going to learn to achieve. There are so many things that you can do to improve your communication. Right. So now we are going to speak on all those aspects. The communication process, that's our first step. So when I'm talking about communication process, when we talk about communication, it should always take this template. It's like the template of communication, right? I don't know what simpler ways to put it, right? It is what communication consists of, right? So we are going to break it down into 8 steps using a traffic officer example, right? A traffic officer giving what do they call this? Gestures, right? On a road, maybe say the traffic light is not working. I'm sure you guys, if there are some people that drive here, when traffic lights are not working, they usually, or maybe at busy intersections, they'll usually have like a traffic officer giving hand gestures and signals, telling you go this way. Now this guy stop. Now this guy's move. And all of that. That is basically a form of communication. And that is the primary example we're going to use to break down this, right? Because what are we trying to do? To be able to teach communication, you must be able to communicate, right? So that's what I'm doing right here, right? I know your study guide gives the same example, but it's not really exciting as I would make it. So this is just a diagram here, which I made for you guys so that you can see it. But firstly, before I'm going to use this as a summary, right? These diagrams, I'm going to use them as a summary to explain what I'm going to say in these 8 steps here, right? So as you can see, I'm sure you've seen just these gestures, right? Where traffic officer lift both hands up, and then all directions must stop, hands down, right and left and whatever, right? I'm sure we all know those. I mean, it's pretty basic, right? That you don't need to go for a course or to attend my class to understand how a traffic officer communicates. That's how simple they've made it to be. And that is also a sign of effective communication. Effective communication is not about using bombastic words like his lecture was so enticing because he used a flamboyant diction and what. You get there and then you'll be like, all I heard was English, but what did I hear? I don't really know. So that is not what we're trying to achieve. I'm not trying to bamboozle you guys and what do they call this? Flabbergast you guys with my vocab, but rather I am trying for us to learn how to communicate. Right. So first things first, when the communication process starts, this is a template. So every time you're communicating in a workplace or wherever it is, this is what is taking place. You might not know it. Some people get it naturally, but for those that are here, I'm sure you want to learn it, right? So that you can use it more effectively, not just intuitively, right? I hope my English is not too much, but anyway, what I'm saying is that you don't want to use it in an instinctive way, but you want to understand how it works so that you can be able to apply it. Right. So now, step one. Step one is that the sender has an idea, right? So communication must always have a purpose. Okay, let me show you an example. Why communication must always have a purpose. Right. Lindiwe Ndlovu. Lindiwe Ndlovu, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, I was just calling you for the sake of, because I liked your name. You see, I've called Lindiwe, but I don't have a purpose, right? She's probably confused. What is this guy calling my name for? Right? So that's what I mean by communication must always have a purpose, right? So whenever you communicate, think, what are you trying to achieve, right? What are you trying to achieve? Right. What outcome do I want? What do I just want Lindiwe to say, yes, I'm here, and then quiet? Like, how does that benefit anyone else in this class? Right? So that is something that we must understand. There must always be a purpose when we are trying to communicate. So what's going to happen is that the traffic officer recognizes a problem, right? That traffic needs to stop to avoid congestion or accidents. So let's take it. I'm going to give you this scenery, right? It's time to free your imagination. I know millennials will understand this one, right? And what Gen X, because we used to watch ETV. Let's free your imagination. Don't mind my singing, it's terrible. But I'm sure you remember it, you get the idea. Now, I want us to free our imagination a little bit, right? Imagine a traffic officer, right, at an intersection, right, which is controlling traffic. That's our scenario, right? That's what we are basing this communication process on. So, firstly, the traffic officer recognized a problem, right? That traffic needs to stop to avoid congestion or accidents, right? So that's the idea. That's the first step, right? Beyond this, there can be nothing. But if the traffic officer gets no idea, they are just as good as a statue standing there, right? So the first part is an idea. Like the traffic officer wants to achieve something, right? So what happens now when they have this idea? Now, this idea is encoded by the sender. Now, what is encoding? Because I cannot just bring a word to you and say, encoded by the sender. It's encoded. And then you're going to go and tell someone, yeah, the idea is encoded. But you don't know what encode means, right? So we're going to break it down. Encoding simply means to turn an idea into a message. using words, symbols, gestures, or images, right? So whatever idea that you have, you can use words, symbols, gestures, or images. So that's why I was saying communication is not just about language. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to communicate to deaf people, right? So that is already something I want us to pay attention to right there. Because maybe people think communication is talking. Well, that's probably why you got dumped and you didn't understand why. I'm sorry. I don't mean it to be personal, but I'm just saying it could have been a communication issue, right? You thought you were talking, but you were not talking in a way that you were being understood by, right? So now, when we're encoding, we are turning an idea into a message. So this is where a lot of things go wrong. A lot of things go wrong here. Why? Because many messages will fail here because people are not able to express what they have in their mind into becoming a message which can be understood, right? Ever wondered, why doesn't this person listen to me? Well, they are listening, but they don't understand. You see? So that is the difference. So many times when a good idea is lost, it's probably at this stage where the person fails to express this idea as a message which can be understood and which will give us feedback. Right. So now, step 3, the message is put then into a medium, right? So the sender chooses how the message will now be delivered, right? So basically, the medium is how the message is going to be delivered. So firstly, it could be verbal. Like right now, I'm delivering my message in a verbal way, right? It could also be written down. It can also be visual, and it can also be non-verbal. So as you can see, I'm using 2 forms of mediums, right? It's written down, and I'm also giving you a verbal, I'm also using a verbal medium, right? So I'm using 2 mediums, right? That shows you how effective I am, right? Because I know that if I just talk about it, someone can easily zone out, and you've gone to Cape Town and you've come back, you're still in December, and wow. But the better the communication, the lesser the zone out, right? Now, the officer used the signal. What did we say the officer does? The officer use the universally understood hand signal, right? So this signal also should not have been something complicated to understand. Otherwise, the majority of the people wouldn't understand, right? I mean, you're just on your way to work. Yes, you're probably late. You don't want to start now like solving issue. What is this person trying to say? It needs to be something which is very clear. Now, I want you to imagine something. Let me show you an example where a medium is incorrectly used. Say the officer in this situation decided to say, "Stop! Stop!" I mean, you are in the middle of traffic. There's probably hooting. There are car sounds. Vroom, 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 and you probably wouldn't hear that. They would have to have a really loud voice for you to hear them say, "Stop! Left, guys! The guy's on the left, stop!" It's rather more complicated. But when you use a gesture, it is a more effective medium because it is easier for you to look. Because on the road, you're paying more attention visually than audially, right? So that is an example of how a medium can be incorrectly used. Right. So now we are on step 4. Step 4, now this is where the message is sent through a channel, right? The message is sent through a channel. So this is the actual transmission of the message. So it's basically when the message is now coming, the part where the message leaves the sender and goes to the receiver, right? So for example, that is when you are clicking send on an email, or it is when you are now speaking in a meeting. Like myself, I'm trying to send you guys the message about business communication, right? So I've had an idea, I've prepared my notes, I've chosen that, okay, we're gonna do this over a Zoom call, right? That is our media, and then I'm gonna be speaking. So now this is the transmission part where I'm talking to you guys, right? So the receiver then receives the message. So at this stage, the message is now noticed, but it's not yet interpreted. So a lot of people now understand reception for interpretation. Yet those are two different things, right? Because I have heard you, it doesn't mean that I have understood you, right? That is why two people sitting next to each other will end up shouting because, like, why do you continue doing this, right? I don't know why I'm shouting. I'm not angry at you guys. I'm not angry at you guys. I don't even know why I'm shouting. Maybe I'm just being so passionate, right, in explaining what I'm explaining. But, well, that is basically what happens at this stage. You receive the message, but you haven't interpreted what the message. So in this case, you are seeing the gesture, but you haven't interpreted. Your mind hasn't interpreted that, okay, this is telling me to stop, right? So now, step 6. This is where the interpretation takes place. Now, so I want you guys to understand these two similar words. We've spoken about encoding. Now we're going to talk about decoding, right? So decoding is the part where now you are making meaning of the message, right? So encoding is when the idea is turned into a message, right? And then decoding is when we are making meaning of the message. So the receiver of the message decodes it, the sender encodes, right? So if we didn't know those words, we've now learned 2 new words, encode and decode, not the decoder for DSTV, but decoding, which is making meaning. So what does your decoder do? It is actually taking the waves and interpreting them in a way that is visual, which you can understand. So it's actually essentially communicating. That's why it's called a decoder. For those who know, I know if you are a Gen Z, maybe you might not know these things, like because DSTV is becoming obsolete, right? But in our days, we used to use DSTV, and there's what we call a decoder there. So whenever you think about decoding, think of the decoder. What does it do? It takes waves, right, from the satellite, and it decodes it into something that you can actually watch, right, on the screen. Right. So the decoding part is where it's making meaning to you. So if I come here and say, hola, era para española, how many people understood what I said? Did anybody understand? Did anyone understand what I said? Did anybody understand? Come on, guys, talk to me. I've been talking for so long. Or maybe people are sleeping behind their screens. I don't know. Did anybody understand what I said? Hola.
No, we didn't
Oh, we
understand.
didn't.
You didn't, right? You didn't. Because that is, thank you. Thank you to the guys that responded. I appreciate that. When you're now talking, I end up feeling like I'm crazy, guys. I end up thinking, oh my gosh, am I mad? Anyway, but yes, when I spoke to you in Spanish, you could not decode what I said. You heard what I said, but you could not decode it, right? Because it's making no meaning to you guys, right? But if I tell you, hi, how are you? Then you think, oh, he's asking how am I? Oh, I'm fine, thanks, and you, right? I want to tell you guys often, I don't know, maybe the guys would understand if there are like a lot of guys here. When you're approaching that moment when you're approaching your crush and and you're like, hi, how are you? And then you're like, I'm fine, thanks. I'm fine, thanks. And you? Huh? Wait. I'm thanks fine. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's some of the things we have to experience as guys. Hey, like you want to tell them you're a sweet potato, and then you get there and you're like, I'm a potato. But well, yeah. So if a guy comes to you and does that, please understand it's probably the nerves, and they just failed to interpret their message. So you're failing to decode, but they're probably meaning something nice, eh? Okay, anyway, now, next step, we are going to talk about the receiver responding. Right. So the response shows whether communication was successful. So when the receiver responds, that shows that the communication was successful. Like when I said hola expananela española, nobody understood because I mean you can't even respond. You're just like, okay, what is this guy mumbling? Okay, so now, in this case, your response that you stopped the car, and this is the desired outcome, which was then achieved. Right. So, in business, you always think ahead, right? In business, you must always think ahead. So, firstly, whenever you are sending a message, you must ask yourself, what action do I want from my audience? Or what do I want my audience to say or to respond? Because, guys, I mean, we've all been victims of poor interpretation and poor communication. Look at a scenario where, for example, you've read an email and you are probably wondering, you read it like maybe 2, 3 times now, and you're probably wondering, what is this person trying to tell me? That is an example of communication breakdown right there. Right. So if you're not getting the desired outcome, it means that you failed to communicate in either one of these 7 steps which you've spoken about. And last but not least, that is the last step where we speak about feedback. Now, feedback is what closes the loop, right? So, for example, you glance at your watch, right? And then the officer notices that, okay, I've stopped at this guy because this guy is glancing at his watch now, showing that he's impatient and now they want to go, right? So I should give these ones a chance and stop the other guys, right? So that is the feedback now which the officer is receiving. Right. So effective communication is never a one way. It's never one way. If you find that you are just talking, and people are not responding, there's a high probability that they don't understand what you're saying. You are just mumbling and mumbling, like what I was saying. If I'm just talking and talking, guys, and you guys are quiet, even when I say, what do you guys think? And you're quiet, that means that I'm not being effective at communication. That makes me so sad. Imagine being a business communication teacher and failing to communicate. Rather sad, right? Now, guys, I'm just going to pause here a little bit. We've reached halfway through our lecture. I just want us now to ask any questions for those that may have any question. And how do we do this? Just unmute your mic and start by saying Donnie so that I can pay attention. Donnie, and then you ask your question, right? So, guys, anybody here with a question so far about what we've done, about anything that we've done, what we've spoken? Do you not understand maybe the step 1? What is encoding? What is decoding? Should I repeat that? This is the time to ask.
Tony,
Yes, Lindiwe?
okay, I just wanted to find out. I'm not sure throughout the lesson if maybe you have a past question paper for us in terms of us understanding how the exam looks like when it comes to business communication. Because yesterday we did the financial reporting, and then at least we saw an example of a past paper in terms of the structure of what is expected out of us. So maybe would like for you also to explain what are the most important parts that we need to, focus on when it comes to maybe our exams and stuff, which are crucial. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yes, certainly you're making sense. Okay, just to address that, that is a very, very good suggestion. Surprisingly, I have never had somebody in my first lecture ask me that. But that is a good suggestion. So now, when it comes to the exam, guys, okay, I do have a past question paper. I just don't know where I might have put it right now, but I could show you guys a past question paper, a type of a past question paper towards the end. Nonetheless, when it comes to business communication, it is rather that subject that you want to understand the concept. It's not about memorizing, but it's about understanding the concept so that you can be able to then tackle the questions. So you want to understand the concept so that you can be able, because they don't typically ask you like what is step 2 of the communication process, but rather the question can come in such a format where they say they'll give you a case study about, so for example, in this case, I will give you the case study about a traffic officer at an intersection, and then they give gestures and all of that. And then I'll ask you, can you break down the communication that has taken place here into into the communication process, or break down how the communication took place using the communication process. And then you're going to have to, maybe the question is going to be like 20 marks, and you're going to have to break it down using step 1 up until step 8. Right. So that is basically how it is. But I do have, and also we are going to cover revision where we do these things together. And I'll explain to you as well how you go about answering the questions. It's just that I don't typically do it in my first lecture, because maybe it may cause someone to be discouraged because we haven't covered everything. And then I'll just show you a long question. Maybe at the end you would have understood what is being asked, but right now it can overwhelm you guys. But I will show you an exam question and an exam answer format. All right, so that is towards the end, Lindiwe. I don't know if that's okay with you and everyone else who had the same question.
No, it's okay.
All right, awesome. So now we are going to talk now about developing strong business communication skills, right? Because understanding the model of the communication process is only the beginning, right? So people that are very good at communicating, they use certain key principles that we are going to talk about here, so that at the end of the day, all of us are good at communication. And essentially, whatever I'm teaching you guys, it's 100% examinable, right? Like I said, it won't typically be asked in maybe in the KCQ, yes. In the KCQ, it will be asked as a question to say what does encoding mean? Then you can maybe select the answer. Or encoding is the process of turning an idea into a message, true or false. You understand? That is the KCQ. But in the exam, that's not typically how it would come. In the exam, it will be more essay like questions. Right. And we're also going to do the KCQ together. If you guys have been, I don't know if you guys have been told that by both James, but yeah. So now, firstly, we want to talk about ethical communication, right? We are talking about developing strong business communication skills. Firstly, the first one is ethical communication. I mean, look at this. Okay, let me give examples. Let me give examples so that I don't end up losing track of my notes. Ethical communication, it basically means being honest, accurate, fair, and transparent, right? We are all familiar with ethics. We apply them in our daily lives. You know, when you choose not to scam someone, the reason why we are not scammers and we are trying to live good lives, it's not because we are scared we'll be caught, right? But it's because we are ethical people. I know somebody's probably laughing, saying that, hey, for me, I'm really scared, actually. It's just because I'm scared I will be caught. Otherwise, if it wasn't because of all of this, I would be straight up a scammer. Well, but I know that there are good people here, right? There are good people that are ethical because they're not scared, but because they're just good people, right? That's what we want to be. So basically, being ethical means that you are being honest, accurate, fair, and transparent, right? So I'm gonna give you guys a few examples of unethical communication. Let's talk about plagiarism. And I want to tell you guys, you know that people that are scammers are actually very good at communication because they can sell you an idea. Sell you an idea. You're going to be rich. Give me 2,000. And it will come back as 8,000. And then when it comes back as 8,000, you're gonna give it back, and then whoo, gone. one, you give back and you put more. You're like, this time I'm gonna put 16,000, it's gonna be 32. And then dololo, pyramid scheme. But if you notice how good those guys are, like, I'm gonna be honest, I was once scammed by these get rich quick overnight schemes. My hard-earned money, right? These guys, they would send you messages, even when you deposit, say, deposit has been accepted and what, but now when they've taken your money, there'll be nowhere to be seen. That's because they're really good at communicating, right? I hope none of us have been, caught by those. Okay, nonetheless, let's continue. There's also what we call selective misquoting. Oh, yeah, plagiarism. Plagiarism, we're very familiar with this one. There's AI plagiarism, where you take the work of AI and you make it look like your own. We know this one. And then there's also plagiarism, where I take Lindiwe or Nosipo's work and then I make it my own, right? That is also plagiarism, because especially without referencing them, right? So it's nice when you're doing it to others, but it's done to you, not so nice. And then there is what we call selective misquoting. It's when I highlight certain aspects of my product and also belittle or demean the negative impact, which can be also very detrimental, right? And then there's what we call also misrepresenting numbers. I tell you, oh yes, so last semester, out of my whole class, there was 100% pass rate. I'm not saying that that's not true, but I'm just saying that in some cases, somebody will tell you it's 100%, but it's not 100%, because I expect all my students to pass honestly, and I'm not a scammer, by the way. I'm just saying, by the end of this class, you guys should certainly pass, right? But there are times where I can say that I have 2 million customers, when in reality, maybe I've had 200. That is misrepresenting numbers, right? And then distorting visuals. So for this one, it's where you receive, for example, I know all of us are going to relate to this. You go with a picture of a hairstyle or a haircut, and then or maybe, have you ever seen at the barber shop or at the salon, they will have pictures. But if you ask them to do what they are showing on the pictures, it will not come out as it's on the picture. I don't know, it's because maybe our head shapes will be different from those guys or what. I don't know. But that kind of seems like distorting visuals for me, right? When you present something as it's not, right? If I present to you a certain product, I think Temu, we are all familiar with Temu, right? How many people have ordered a life-size book, right? And then you get maybe like a miniature version of it, right? And you're like, what am I going to do with this? Because on the picture, it looks big. I know there's another person that ordered, was it like a PlayStation 5? And it was just a box and a paper inside there. Apparently, the box was the one that was worth 10,000. Imagine. Crazy, right? So now, that is unethical communication. So we can all admit that unethical communication is wrong, right? We can all admit now, and that we don't want to be scammers. Not because we are scared we are going to get caught. I once saw a meme where someone was like, I know if I try to scam, God will use me as an example. Well, that's one way to avoid it, but well, just be careful. Now, ethical self-check questions. Firstly, these are the questions that you use if maybe you are about to send a message, right? You want to make sure that it meets the requirements of this question. You can answer yes to all these questions. Oh, no, not yes, but you can answer them ethically. So, for example, your first question should be, is this message truthful? If you can't say yes to that, reconsider. Could it mislead someone, right? I mean, I'm telling you, I'm going to give you give me 2,000, it comes back as 4,000, but you didn't do anything. Right? That's very tricky. Or then afterwards, I'm telling you, oh no, your money, actually, I'm using it as this. That's misleading, right? Would I be comfortable if this message went public? Say you were trying to extort someone and then they exposed you. Would you be comfortable with that. If you are not, remember in business, you're not representing yourself. You are representing your business. So you're going to be fired because you failed to communicate. Right. And then now, second part, we want to become elite business communicators, right? So whatever we're going to learn during the course of this module is not just for us to pass the exam, although that is the prime goal we are doing it, but at the end of the day, we must also be able to communicate. If you had maybe you're an entrepreneur, right, or you have a side business, you need to know these things because maybe there are going to be people that are going to be below you, which are going to be expecting to give maybe certain instructions. You must be able to communicate them, right, and all of that. So now, intercultural sensitivity. And then, so we have what we call intercultural sensitivity. Guys, can you just give me a second? There's just something I need to fix right now. Just literally a second. All right, guys, I'm back. Right, sorry about that. Sorry about that little distraction. Now we're talking about intercultural sensitivity. Before I even go to the notes, right? Before I even, yes, Nosipo, please, may I ask a
Okay.
question?
Hi. I actually wanted to find out, I wanted you to go back to the questions. Are you reading from the textbook? Because I saw the self-check questions. Are they important? Is it something that we need to take notes of? And also, they were kind of different from the ones that are on the textbook.
Self-check question. Oh, you mean these ones?
Yes.
Oh, so they are different from the ones in the textbook.
Yeah, we
Okay.
have 6 questions.
Okay, so like what I said, you see, with business communication, the textbook, that's why I said it's not about memorizing, but rather understanding. So my goal here is to make you guys understand the concepts. Because so some of the things you find out that I have sort of like condensed them. Because if I'm to read everything, it will be boring and you guys are gonna sleep, you're gonna log out, and you're gonna be like, okay, that class is boring, I'm just gonna drop it. Right? So what I'm doing is that I'm condensing the things because out of all my experience, right, I've seen a lot of exams and I haven't really come across a question where you had to literally memorize anything. It's more application. Right? Have I answered your question? No, Sipo?
Yes, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Awesome stuff. And I'm glad that you're looking at the study guide. Well, my notes work in conjunction with the study guide, but you can also use my notes alone and understand whatever is going on. Trust me, the study guide, you're gonna focus maybe the first few pages, and afterwards you're just like, okay, this is a lot of words, right? Because initially I used to use notes directly from the study guide, but then I figured that students tend to easily get bored. So let me make them interesting. Right. So now, intercultural sensitivity. Before I even go far, I'm going to explain this to you because I also want us to remember these things that even in life, you're going to use these. Let me show you an example of somebody that is not sensitive to culture. Right. Let me show you an example. So, say you have a trip, a business meeting to Dubai, right? You have a business meeting to Dubai. Well, as a lady, right? A lady, you're a boss lady, CEO, and you have a business meeting in Dubai and you're meeting some sheikhs, for maybe you're petitioning, not petitioning, but rather you are seeking funding, right? Maybe they're seeking sponsorship. They want to sponsor a certain program of yours. And then what happens is that you arrive there in your miniskirt and clothes that are revealing the skin and all of that. Do you think that you're gonna get the funding? I just want to see who's culturally sensitive and not in my class. How many people think they're gonna get the sponsorship. Before you even present, maybe your presentation is A+, it's good, it's the best, but on paper, okay, one person says no, Sipho. Where are the other guys? Where are the other guys? Let's interact. Interact with me in the chat there. I want to see yes, no, yes, no. And if you say yes, why? If you say no, why? But you don't need to really explain, but I just need to see you guys interacting as well. So my question is, do you think she's gonna get the funding or not? Okay, only one person is answered, guys. There's a chart there, right? You just go there and you type yes or no. I'll type for you guys. So no Sipho has done it. Me, I say no, right? For example, I'm not saying that's the correct answer. I'm just saying my answer would be no, right? And then somebody else, I want to know what you guys think. I'm trying to engage with you people, but anyway, it's fine for the sake of our time. Maybe we'll get used and acquainted to one another as we go on. Nonetheless, what I'm saying here is she's probably not gonna land the sponsorship. Why? Because we all know that people in Dubai, they're very strong culturally. Their culture requires them that maybe women should be totally covered. You know, they usually cover their faces even and all of that. And if you arrive in such a manner, initially, before they can even hear your presentation, they're going to have the wrong idea, which will cause them to be hostile towards your request, right? So that is what we mean by you must be interculturally sensitive, right? So you imagine if you had just followed what they require in terms of dressing, you're probably gonna get favor with them, right? Because they'll be like, this person understands us. I mean, and they'll be willing to listen to you, right? So that's just an example right there, right? Not to be generally biased or anything, but I hope you understand exactly what I'm trying to say. Now, firstly, culture. Our culture shapes how we interpret messages, what we consider as polite or offensive, and it also shapes how direct or indirect communication should be. Right. And then, so basically, practical guidelines when we're talking about intercultural sensitivity is that you must assume difference before similarity. Always withhold your judgment, right? And then show respect. And then be flexible and recognize your own biases. Emphasize common ground, right? So, for example, let me tell you a very nice example about cultural sensitivity. So, with Ethiopian people, they have you're probably wondering, how does this guy know so much? I know things because communication is not just about language, right? So with Ethiopian people, there's a certain custom that they observe to show that they've accepted you in their circles, right? So they call that when they say I'm to gurusha someone. I don't know what that essentially means in their language, but if they accepted you, they gurusha you, right? So basically what happens is that when they gurusha you, they take, I don't know, is it called like a chapati, and they put a whole lot of stuff and they feed you directly through the mouth, right? So essentially to them, if you refuse, they're going to be angry. They'll take offense that this person doesn't want to be a part of us. And they also will revert their acceptation of you, right? So that is what I mean by you must withhold judgment, right? That is their culture and custom. So in order to be accepted by them, you have to be gurusha. Somebody has to feed you through the mouth. Maybe it's not your thing, but that is intercultural sensitivity, right? So I'm giving you homework. That's something you can research about how Ethiopian do it. Just say gurusha and it will explain to you. Now, that's just an example. So basically, there's a golden rule which we know, which often says, treat others as you'd like to be treated, right? But however, there's even a better rule which says, treat others as they would like to be treated, right? It feels like, oh, boom, this guy just mixed up his words and it sounds different. Right. So what do I mean? Essentially, normally it is human, according to decorum, we just want to say, I treat you the way I would like to be treated. But what if I don't want to be treated the way you like to be treated? How about treating me the way that I like to be treated, right? And this then brings us to what we call the audience-centered approach, right? Because effective communication does not focus on the sender, it focuses on the receiver. Let me give you a few examples, right? So look at this message, right? I want to be done by 9:10. I don't know if that's okay with you guys. I don't know. It's a vote. This is a democracy here, guys. Yes, no. Is it too long? I can end it at 9, at 8. I mean, sorry, 10:08, not 9. Oh, my bad, my bad. 10:08, not 9.
10:08 is okay. I'm thinking 10:09.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Lindy. That's fine. It's 10:08, not 10:09. Hey, people will be like, well, listening to this guy's cranky voice. Hell no. Okay, so essentially, right, effective communication focuses on the receiver and not the sender, right? So, for example, we see a message which says, like, let me give you an example here. I want you guys to understand the audience-centered approach. Who do you send this message to, right? To your friend, your lecturer, your boss, or the CEO, right? So firstly, fix this ASAP. The message is fix this ASAP, you know what I mean. Would you send this, who would you send this message to among these people? Fix this ASAP, you know what I mean. Would you send it to your friend, your lecturer, your boss, or the CEO?
A friend.
Friend, right? Thank you, Bridget. Awesome. So Bridget understands the audience-centered approach. Congratulations. So you're already ahead of the lecture notes, right? Thank you. And EN, that's the name I'm seeing here. That is also a correct answer. I'm seeing a lot of people are responding. I really enjoy that. I like to see that you guys are interacting. Friend, right? So that shows that the majority of us understand what an audience-centered approach is, right? So now, would you send this message to, please revert urgently? Who do you think it's appropriate to send to? Your friend, your lecturer, your boss, or the CEO? Please revert urgently. Would you send this to your friend, your lecturer, your boss, or the CEO? There's more than one correct answer. I mean, it doesn't have to be. Okay, somebody says boss. That is correct. Boss, that is correct. Yes, because it's more formal, right? It's more more formal setting, more business etiquette, right? And then this report is bad. You would send this to your friend. And also such a message can be sent even to the CEO. Please revert urgently, right? This report is bad. It rather sounds casual. You know, you send that to your friend. You can't just send that to your boss. And this report is bad. Like, you know, you need to show respect. So that's what we mean by the message is about the audience, right? Why is it that you talk different to your friend? Because it's the same message. The message is saying that the message is bad, or the report that you sent is bad, right? Fix it, right? But it's the same message, but it's sent differently. Why? That is because the audience is what determines how you communicate. The same way you talk to your boss is not the same way you're going to talk to your friend, right? So that's what we mean by audience-centered approach. So, and you also can't talk to your friend the same way you talk to your boss. You get it? Right. So, before sending a message, you need to ask, how will the message be interpreted? Could it offend or confuse? And then also, am I making assumptions about the audience? And then also, will this message produce the response that I want? Right. So, and then another thing we want to talk about is audience awareness improves clarity, respect, and impact. So whenever you're sending a message, you must know who you're sending it to, right? That is the audience-centered approach. I'm sure you understand that now. I'm sure from reading the study guide, you've been like, audience-centered approach, what do we mean? Right? But now we understand that it's simply about adjusting the way you communicate respective to the audience, right? So, and also so that the audience does not misunderstand. Because if you send this message to your boss, fix this ASAP, you know what I mean? He or she will be like, this person is disrespectful, right? But if it's your friend, they'll be like, oh yeah, thanks, man. I hadn't noticed that. You see? So that's basically what we mean. And then giving and receiving constructive feedback, right? So constructive feedback focuses on improvement and it addresses the message or process, not the person. So, for example, if I'm giving you feedback and I am talking about what you did instead of about you, right? That is most likely going to be constructive feedback, right? It focuses on improving the errors rather than targeting the person and say, yeah, you are stupid. No, that is destructive feedback, right? It does not improve. It just criticizes. No, that was dumb what you said. But if I say, for example, if I say, oh, I really think you could have written this in such a manner, it would have probably sounded better, right? That is constructive feedback. But if I say the way you sent your message was dumb, like that is just destructive because I am not talking about improving, right? So that's how to differentiate. So in life, generally, there'll be people that come with constructive feedback and people that come with destructive feedback. So we just need to make sure that we take the constructive and dump the destructive. Right. So now, sensitivity to business etiquette. Right. So business etiquette is simply about professional behavior. You cannot go to your boss and say, "Bra, are you nah?" Like that is not the right business etiquette. You say, "Good morning, sir." That sounds rather better. Right? So you don't need to memorize these rules. You just need to remember that. Must one respect and show courtesy, right? And then you must also have common sense. Just common sense to know that here I'm at work and not at home, right? So your behavior reflects not only on you, but it also reflects on the organization and brand. That is why you need to be very aware. Because if you are typing an email and they're saying, aware, brah, I think that you're supposed to do this and do that, and you are putting slang all over the place. They'll be like, these people from this company, they don't know how to communicate. This company is unprofessional. It's not even you. They will just say the company. So you are representing the company. That's what you need to know. Right. So now, using communication technology effectively. So modern business, it relies on email, instant messaging, social media, and virtual meetings, right? So you can imagine, right? We must use technology. It's no longer you can use it. It's you must use it nowadays. You must know how to use technology, whether you're Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. Everybody needs to know how to use technology, right? So effective communicators, you must choose the right platform. So there are certain places which are associated with being formal, like email. If I say I'm going to send you an email, it sounds like, ooh, that sounds rather formal, right? But if I'm sending you a WhatsApp text, WhatsApp is really easy to be informal. Although nowadays businesses do use WhatsApp because it's convenient. But if you really want to keep things formal, email is the best way, right? You don't apply for a job on WhatsApp. I don't know how that has happened. Unless you have connections, because nowadays people have connections anyway. But if you're applying for a job, it's normally through email, right? So you must use technology effectively, right? And then know also when face-to-face communication is better. Because there are times where face-to-face is better than texting and all that, because sometimes it's easier to understand. Think of it like this. If communication was easy, friendships would not be broken over group chats. Group chats can cause friendships to break. That's how communication is important. So some matters, when somebody keeps on coming in the same thing, just say, I think we should talk about this face to face. And you know what I've noticed? I'm going to give you guys a life hack. Sorry, I'm doing this. Our time is almost up and we're almost done, by the way. Right? Just a quick example, right? So, what I've noticed about people is that it's so easy to send a text message insulting someone than to do it face to face. So whenever you see someone like that, you'd rather say, no, I think we should rather speak face to face, right? It makes you appear less as a coward because other people find it easier to just insult people. There was this person in one of the group chats I'm at, work-related things, and they'll just talk nonsense. But then when I approach them, they're like, "Oh yeah, it was a misunderstanding, but we are just trying. Everyone is trying. We're trying to do this." But on the group, they are talking nonsense. So sometimes you must tell a person, "Okay, let's just meet face to face and talk about this nicely," right? And it will also show you that you are matured and you understand how things work. These are just simple things about etiquette, right? So, benefits of effective business communication, right? Now, after we've spoken about why we want to learn all of these, why business communication, we are now going to talk about its benefits, right? So strong communication leads to faster problem solving, better decision making, higher productivity, stronger relationships, professional credibility, because remember, you are not representing yourself, you are representing your organization. And me, if I have a business, right? I know me, if I start by saying me, that's incorrect English, but it's okay. It's just like saying my name is, guys. Understand, some of us English is not our mother tongue, right? But what I'm trying to say here is that if I was running a business, I would want somebody who I can trust to be professional enough to represent me. I don't want somebody that will misrepresent my business, right? Because initially, even how you dress is communication, right? That's why if you're in a work office environment, it's not maybe if the special day where you're like, okay, it's a work party, that's when you can go with your shorts and your casual clothing. But most of the times you find corporate guys wearing formal, right? Because communication is on its own. Dressing is also a communication. Ever heard the phrase, dress the way you want to be addressed? Right. So, and then we're going to talk about stronger brands as well. So communication strengthens even the brand, right? And then it also improves stakeholder response, right? As long as it's good. So, because remember, at the end of the day, what did I say? Step 8 of the communication process is that you must get a good response, right? And then developing effective business messages. So, effective messages should, one, provide practical information. They should use facts, not vague expressions. They should also be clear and concise, and they should also clarify expectations, right? And they should also persuade logically and ethically, right? So that is it for for business communication unit 1. So like any other teacher, I have homework, which I would like you guys to try, so that this would help you mostly with your KCQs and all, right? So, firstly, communication is the process of sending and receiving messages. So I'm gonna need you guys to answer true or false to these 5 questions, and then next week we're gonna come back and answer them and see who was listening and who was not, right? And then a closing thought. Business success depends not only on what you know, but on how well you communicate it, right? So it's not just about what you know, but it's about how well you communicate what you know, right? So to master this process, we must respect our audience and we must communicate with purpose, right? So don't just send a message not knowing what you're trying to achieve, right? So lastly, guys, in conclusion, this is my last sentence, and I'll give you guys a chance to speak. I've been speaking for so long. Which step in the communication process do you think causes the most trouble in real life? And why? Anybody? We've done the communication process, those 8 steps. Which step do you guys think causes the most problems? And why do you think so? Is it step 1, the sender getting an idea? Or is it the encoding of the idea, the decoding, choosing the right medium, choosing the channel? What do you think causes most problems in real life? Say maybe even in relationships. What happens? Ever been in a yes, Nosipo?
Before I even spoke, I think it's the encoding part where you have to relay your idea and turn it into a message.
Yes, that I'm really impressed by the way. I'm really impressed by the way you said it. Show that you've been listening. My goodness. Whoa, you guys are good. Wow, wow, wow. Excellent, Nosipo. The way you spoke about it show that you actually know which step we are talking about. Right? And that shows me that you guys are listening. That's why I like to hear from you guys. So Nosipo says that it's the step where you encode the message, right? Where you're turning the idea into a message. So you're taking your idea and you're making it a message. That is the hard part. And I agree with you, Nosipo. I really, really agree with you there. Because, have you ever been in a situation where somebody actually, and guys, if you want to add a suggestion, this is the time. Ne? Just say Donnie and then you talk, right? And I'll stop, right? Unmute your mic and say Donnie if you want to say anything, in addition. So, like in a situation where somebody tells you that I like what you're saying, but I don't like the way you're saying it. Have you ever wondered that? Like even with our parents, for example, there are certain things that they'll tell you, but just because they told you in a certain way, you don't like it. You don't like it, and you don't want to listen. You see, because the message is not encoded properly. The person has the right idea, but they do not encode it correctly, and hence it's misinterpreted and it cannot be translated well. So I agree with you there as well, Nosipo. I don't know if anybody else thinks maybe other stage causes problems in real life. Okay, that means yes, Bridget. Yes, yes, yes.
Sorry, Donnie. I was just thinking, like, what of decoding as well? Because I remember we used to play a game when we were kids, broken telephone. You'd actually
Oh,
encode the
yes.
message, yeah, and then by the time it gets to an individual, like, person three or second one, it's all misinterpreted. So I don't know if it's decoding doesn't actually play a factor as well. Not in, I agree with Nozipo encoding, but I'm also thinking decoding as well, because understanding the message clearly. If you don't understand it, then you're gonna know you're not gonna represent it correctly.
Well, that is good. That is actually correct. And I like the approach. I like the approach very well. Now, here's how it's actually decoding and encoding if you get it. Because but also the person, okay, it depends on on which part of the chain, right? Of the telephone, right? Because by the third person, it's now really a decoding issue. But the first person, if the first person misinterprets, it means that they failed to encode, right? But by the third, fourth person, it's now a matter of encoding. And you're right, certainly. And that's how rumors are. you know, sning, you got a job, and then I just say, okay, did you hear that? Maybe I'm telling Nosip, I'm like, did you hear that Bridget got a job? Apparently she had to bribe Sbanbani, right? And then when it gets there, Bridget is bribing people for jobs. You see, and then by the end you might find out that Bridget is getting bribed for jobs. Now it's already so mixed up, you see. So basically, yeah, it's those two steps, and I'm glad that you guys recognize that. I don't know if there's anybody else before we conclude. Um, I'm seeing that our time is up. I don't know if I can bring the exam, our next lecture, and I'll make sure it's the first thing we do. I don't know about that, guys. And because I don't want to take too long, because what's going to happen is that if I take too long now, you people are going to end up leaving. A lot of people are going to end up leaving, and some might not end up benefiting from this because I promised 10 past and it's well over 10 past. So I don't know if there's any other additions. Okay, let me see. Oh, Bridget, you're saying yes, please. I don't know. What do you mean by yes, please? am I, or we can do it the next class? That's what you mean by yes, please, right?
Exam, yes, thank you.
All right, awesome. So I'm gonna show you guys the exam format and all of that first thing in our next class. I hope you guys will be looking forward to it as much as I am. It was certainly nice having you guys here. I feel like I know you. And I'm going to send my lecture notes as well. And this diagram is basically a summary of the 8-step communication process. It shows quite a few things. If the decoding does not take place properly, feedback becomes distorted. So I'm glad that one person said encoding, the other person said decoding, right? So that's basically what affects feedback most of the times, right? So if this part is bypassed, whatever comes after is noise. Right. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this class as much as I did, and I'm certainly looking forward to our next class. If there are no questions, I'm going to end here and see you in the next class.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Donnie. Bye.
All right, you're welcome,
Donnie.
guys. Have a
Donnie,
productive week. Yes?
did you record the session?
Yes, it's recording.
Oh, okay, cool.
You almost gave me a
Bye.
heart attack. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Good night, everybody. Have a productive week until we meet again.